This is the Reading Instruction Show. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Andy Johnson. Topic of today's program, letters, weasels, or energy-efficient light bulb. And we're going to look specifically at Lexia Letters efficacy research. And efficacy means the power to produce an effect. Now, one of the impacts of the READ Act here in Minnesota is that many teachers will be forced to go to one of 3 state-approved re-education camps or programs for professional development. And you can see them right there: Carry All, OL and LA, and LETRS. And I absolutely agree that continued professional development for teachers is essential for the health of our schools. It's not possible to create a finished teaching product in 3 semesters of any teacher preparation program. To become and maintain one's status as a master teacher, one must receive legitimate, high-quality, continuing professional development. If you're not evolving, you are devolving. So let's take a look at evidence-based professional development. The READ Act here in Minnesota calls for evidence-based instruction to be used for reading instruction. This is the standard. Thus, I am absolutely certain and highly confident that the 3 professional development programs identified by the Minnesota Department of Education and listed above in the previous slide are indeed evidence-based. No, of course they are. Because if they weren't, that would mean that the whole READ Act was a mirage wrapped in an illusion swaddled in a boondoggle. It would also mean that Representative Heather Edelson, the sponsor of this bill, was a gullible bunny with lips stained red from drinking all the profit-based Kool-Aid. So what does it mean to be evidence-based? According to the READ Act, evidence-based means the instruction or item described is based on reliable, trustworthy, and valid evidence and has demonstrated a record of success in increasing students' reading competency in the areas of phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, reading fluency, and comprehension. And since LETRS is one of these state-approved professional development programs, and because this is listed on the Minnesota Department of Education website, we can all be absolutely certain that the professional development program is based on reliable and trustworthy and valid evidence, and that it has demonstrated a record of success in those things. Oh, yes, we can. Now let's take a look at the science of reading. The READ Act mandates that all reading instruction in Minnesota be based on the science of reading. This sounds like a very good thing. We all know that science is a good thing, and using science in reading instruction is a good thing. But what exactly is the science of reading? Well, the Reading League defines the science of reading as a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. This research has been conducted over the last 5 decades across the world and is derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in a preponderance of evidence to inform how proficient reading and writing develop, why some have difficulty, and how we can most effectively assess and teach, therefore improve students' outcomes through prevention of and intervention for reading difficulties. Oh my goodness. Just listen to the words here: interdisciplinary, scientifically based research, preponderance of evidence, thousands of studies, improve student outcomes, prevent reading difficulties. Who could possibly argue with these very important sounding words? But it's still a bit unclear what exactly is meant by the science of reading. For a better understanding, let's turn to Dr. Timothy Shanahan. In a recent article he published in Reading Research Quarterly, the good Dr. Shanahan explained that the science of reading is commonly understood today as the exclusive use of strategies that have been shown to be effective using controlled experimental research and conducted in actual classroom learning environments. Accordingly, this is the only type of research that should be used to design reading programs and make reading policy. Science of reading, strategies that have been shown to be effective used in controlled experimental research and conducted in the settings in which they will be used, which in this case are classrooms. This is very important. Applying this standard to the 3 professional development programs mandated by the Minnesota Department of Education enables us to have confidence that all 3 programs have been shown to be effective using controlled experimental research and conducted in actual learning environments. Of course, we would expect nothing less from the Minnesota Department of Education. So this presentation looks at LETRS, one of these professional development programs, language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. And I wanted to find the reliable, trustworthy, and valid evidence that has demonstrated that LETRS had a record of success in increasing students' reading competency. I was eager to start reading all the research showing the demonstrated record of success that LETRS has had in increasing students' reading competency. And because my trust in the Minnesota Department of Education is so strong, I knew that I would soon find all the research conducted over the last 5 decades across the world and derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages to support the proposition that LETRS professional development, A, enabled teachers to teach better, B, readers to read better, and C, was better than other forms of professional development. Easy peasy. But alas, alack, when I searched the research database at Minnesota State University, nothing came up. But thank you, Lexia Learning. After a short Google search, I did come across the Lexia website. Lexia publishes LETRS, and according to the website, for 40 years, Lexia has led the science of reading revolution, helping educators create real change. Led the revolution, real change. 40 years it took them to do that. Now, on their site, it says that Lexia Learning, quote, contains science of reading K-8 solutions. And who doesn't like a good solution? And since there were lots of pictures of happy, smiling children and happy, smiling teachers, I just knew that I could trust this to be an accurate and reliable source of information. On the website, I found the research I was looking for. It was called Lexia LETRS Efficacy Research and published in 2023. And efficacy means the power to produce an effect. Here at last was the research that would show unequivocally, indubitably, that LETRS has the power to produce an effect, which in this case would be improved teaching and improve student reading outcomes. Thank you, Lexia Learning. I knew that I could depend upon you. So, LETRS efficacy research. The introduction to this research promised that educators who complete LETRS gain the deep knowledge needed to be literacy and language experts in the science of reading. That's what they promised. Excellent. But then I ran across a confusing passage. I was so confused. It said, qualitative research and non-causal quantitative research can offer important and unique insights into the nuances of educator experiences and the factors that shape their use and perceptions of LETRS. Well, yes, many of us have been saying that for years, But we know we must embrace the science of reading. This is not in accordance with the science of reading. The science of reading is firmly based on the exclusive use of strategies that have been shown to be effective using controlled experimental research and conducted in actual classroom learning environments. This is the only type of research that schools should be using to design reading programs and make reading policy. But there it was on page 1. Qualitative and non-causal quantitative research. How was it possible to find causes using non-causal quantitative research? And how was it possible that Lexia and letters would be held to a much lesser scientific standard than, say, reading teachers in Minnesota? Doesn't make sense. So let's look at their key findings. The primary purpose of letters is to, quote, improve teacher knowledge and instructional practice. That's on page 3. And the report says that the weight of empirical evidence suggests it can improve teacher knowledge and instruction when used as intended. Now, empirical means data collected by observation or experience. And in this case, there was a weight of it, so they say. And that must mean there's so much empirical evidence that it would be heavy enough to weigh. Now, I read each of the 18 research studies used as empirical evidence in this report. And by the way, the research studies used to provide empirical evidence here were, in fact, pretty pathetic. Many methodological concerns, and I'll be analyzing these in the next paper. But Lexia reported 5 key findings, and I'm going to report them unto you with my analysis. Key finding number 1, improve teacher knowledge and practice. Teachers who complete letters training demonstrated higher levels of knowledge and improved instructional practice across a variety of objective and self-rated measures. Well, this is not quite accurate. It would be more accurate to say that teachers who completed letters training demonstrated higher levels of letter knowledge, as we would expect. If you teach something, students are generally going to score higher on measures of that something that was taught. However, there was nothing in any of the 18 research studies to suggest that letters knowledge was linked to improve teaching performance. And there was nothing in any of the research to suggest that letters knowledge was necessary to teach reading effectively. In most cases, teachers were asked in these research studies to complete a survey indicating their perceptions and beliefs about things. And perceptions and beliefs are not what most would include as strong empirical evidence. Number 2, letters often implemented with other interventions. Schools, districts, and states that implemented letters often do so along other large-scale initiatives. Educators variously perceive these initiatives as helping or hindering letters implementation. Okay, this key finding doesn't tell us anything. Letters is often implemented alongside other large-scale initiatives. Okay, so what? Educators have perceptions of these initiatives. Okay, again, so what? There was nothing in any of the 18 research studies linking letters with teacher practice or student outcomes. Also, teachers perceived the initiatives as helping or hindering letters implementation. Okay, but again, so what? This tells us nothing of the efficacy of letters. They said that these initiatives are perceived as either helping or hindering letters implementation. Perceptions, helping and hindering implementations, so what? There was nothing in any of the studies linking letters to improved outcomes related to reading instruction or students reading. Also, I reviewed all 18 of the research studies. Even though this key finding is not flattering to letters, it was not a major takeaway from any of the studies that I read. Number 3, implementation linked to improve outcomes. Sounds promising. Positive teacher outcomes were most likely to be observed in studies that reported moderate to high levels of implementation. Here's my analysis. This key finding is blatantly false, untrue. There were no teacher outcomes, positive or negative, reported in these studies, other than teachers' perceptions of their knowledge or measures of their knowledge related to letters. Perceptions of their knowledge or measures of their knowledge related to letters. Perceptions are hard to observe. Yes, you can use a Likert scale and have participants rate their perceptions, and this can be used to get quantifiable empirical data, but this again is pretty lame. Hardly a positive teacher outcome. There were no outcomes linking letters to improved reading instruction or improvements in students' reading. There were no outcomes comparing letters to other professional development programs. Educators perceive letters learning to be essential. Studies that address educator perceptions of letters suggest that educators view their learning as playing a positive, if not essential, role in improving student reading. Again, only the studies that address educators' perceptions of letters are included in this key finding. The measurable outcome was a perception measured by a survey. Again, we're talking about perceptions. And since when do rational human beings make $100 million decisions like they did here in Minnesota based on perceptions? There is no hard data to tie letters to teacher performance or student outcomes. And how many educators perceive letters to be essential? Are these educators representative of a larger population? Also, this is a self-selected population. Only the educators who took the letters courses took the survey. Unless it was mandated, they wouldn't be taking the course unless they thought it might be helpful. This conclusion is a stretch. And the last one, letters demonstrates remarkable adaptability. LETRS has been implemented in a variety of contexts, ranging from single schools to statewide multi-component literacy initiatives. While careful implementation planning is always warranted, challenging contexts may call for support from Lexia's customer success management. And I reviewed each of the 18 studies. There was nothing in any of them related to remarkable adaptability. And saying that you might need to call Lexia's customer success management for support is hardly a ringing endorsement for LETRS. It also says nothing about its efficacy. So, my key finding from the findings is more of a question. Were the people who wrote this report weasels or energy-efficient light bulbs? A weasel is defined as a deceitful or treacherous person. An energy-efficient light bulb is one that is not too bright. This has been the Reading Instruction Show. I am your host, Dr. Andy Johnson.